My name is Jarek Janio, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the symposium today, as I welcomed everyone, ChatGPT and artificial intelligence tools are a challenge that is really kind of catching a lot of us off guard. And we really don't know what exactly to do, how to react, how to behave, and what really are the implications on teaching and learning. So I thought of this forum as one of those breakout sessions that will be focused just on that discussion, so that we can hash out and share ideas, share experiences, and who knows, maybe we can come up with some solutions. They could be very recent. Maybe this is something that we are thinking of in the midst of the conversation, and that's obviously just fine, because again, the issue is very new. But it obviously, at least to me, it's obvious that the implications of this phenomena are already quite profound. So yes, again, this is kind of like a repeated question. Yes, we are going to record all sessions, and the recordings are going to be available on Fresno City College, on YouTube, and there is the coach's website. So no worries. And if you need a recording of any session, don't hesitate to send us an email, and we'll make it available to you. We'll send you a link to where you can find it. So so that's it. So this is the beginning of it, and let me just say that in the previous session that I had just a few minutes earlier, that we have just concluded, there is like everywhere else, right? Some people welcome ChatGPT with open arms, others panic, or they would like to ban it, and this is, what are we going to do now? So the floor is pretty much yours. If you would like to make any comments, please don't hesitate. We are not necessarily going to be discussing the possibilities that ChatGPT opens from the technical perspective, but rather what it really means to us. So it's a tool that will really, that has already revolutionized the way we interact with the internet. With Google, you know, you ask a question of Google, you get 2 million pages that you need to sift through before you come up with an answer that you like. There is the issue of credibility of different websites, different perspectives, and that, if nothing else, not only that this analysis of the available responses requires analytical skills of the viewer, of the students, and us as faculty and otherwise, it's still it's time consuming. And when it comes to ChatGPT, for those of you who have already tried it, you get an answer to pretty much any question that you can envision instantly, and it really is instant for practical purposes. You type a prompt, and ChatGPT responds in written language instantly, and the text appears on your screen. So the issue here is that you can ask, please compare, and this is something that I in the spirit of the moment, please compare the Vikings. The conquest of Vikings to today's political political atmosphere of southern Minnesota, let's say, and ChatGPT is going to come up with analogies and good analysis of and finding parallels in the two seemingly unrelated phenomena. So it is something that's again, for starting with English teachers who are as I heard in the previous session, are absolutely panicking, to pretty much any other discipline, because as you know, perhaps outside of math, anywhere we go, written essay or reflection or homework that's assigned in a form of an essay is a is an exercise that we use quite often. So what other implications? So if I could please, you're welcome to use the chat to share your comments if you have any. But since we have some people here already, would you please share, if you've done it already, what is your experience with the chat? What was the purpose of your interaction with it, and what have you found? Any volunteers here? I see Denise is there, so I'm going to pick on her because she has the camera on and she's smiling. So if you don't mind, let me see here. Okay, I think you can unmute yourself now.
Great, thank you. So,
Thank you.
So I first heard about it in a department meeting. I'm an English instructor. Heard about it in a department meeting, and there was a sense of panic. One colleague of mine said that, there was a student she had in class whose work, student was an ESL student, so English was not their first language. The work that they produced in class was okay, had kind of typical ESL errors, but then the work that they were turning in, that they were doing at home, was this, beautifully polished, wonderful work. And when the instructor asked about it, the student readily said, like, yes, I'm using this thing because it helps me polish my work. And so that was my first, kind of introduction to it. And then I've been reading about it. The Washington Post, for anyone who's interested, has had articles, gosh, like at least once a week, sometimes more than once a week, on the implications of ChatGPT. So I downloaded it and was playing around with, my husband's a musician, so playing around with writing song lyrics, and, just seeing, and it was spitting out some good stuff. So, I think, at least for me as an English teacher, a couple of things kind of come to mind. The first thing is that I think the assignments that we instructors craft are going to have to be more reliant on either works that are not, like, or assignments that are not sort of the argue for one side of a controversial issue, right? I think that's going to be, there's so much written about, abortion and gun control. And so I think our assignments are going to have to become more specific. Maybe, I'm from Riverside County, so maybe I want students to research something in Riverside, right? So then there's less kind of out there on the internet written about it. So they're going to have to become maybe more focused or more local, and more personal. The session that I just did with my colleague, we talked about inclusive and utility value of assignments. And so this idea that the assignment should be allow students to kind of contribute their own lives, about their own lives, in there. And so, you can't, I guess ChatGPT could make up something about my life or whatever, but I mean, if you're having the students write about themselves or how something connects to themselves, they might be less likely to rely on ChatGPT to write an entire paper for them. And, we're never going to stop people from plagiarizing and cheating if they really want to, but if they don't want to, if they want to write about themselves, then it might be better or easier, and they'll rely maybe more on it for just fluency, and like this ESL student did, as opposed to I'm going to let this thing write my entire paper for me. So
yeah, Denise, so you raised a number of really important points here. So let me just to address your points. If I miss something, don't hesitate to let me know. The first issue of the ESL student is a perfect example. I speak English as a second language myself, and I tell you, in my speeches, in my conversations, I rarely ever use idioms or jokes, and especially if they have anything to do with baseball. I'm just, that's just not my thing. I'm just not going to be talking. There are certain topics that are just kind of like, and I tell you, I find myself very often, and again, it's not necessarily that I, not only because I don't speak English, but let's just say there's an issue I'm just not familiar with, right? So instead of interrupting the discussion, because we've been to those boardrooms where everybody, the speakers always says there are no dumb questions. Well, you just dare ask one, right? And then, like, okay. Well, guess what? I am, this is Zoom territory. So I'm in an institutional effectiveness meeting. And there is a term I just kind of like, yeah, I think I know what it means, but okay, let me check. And I ask chat and I'm participating in a meeting. And at the same time, the chat gives me answer what the definition is in an instant, right? Hey, I'm participating in a discussion. Nobody even knows. As a matter of fact, I feel much better that I know I can contribute now rather than just sit there and be quiet because I'm not sure if what I'm saying is right. So the same thing is probably can be said about students, right? Again, ESL is a perfect example. I think of ChatGPT and other AI tools as this, robot that you may have seen in Avatar, or other science fiction movies, where there is this, huge monster made of steel that's capable of, loading the cargo that weighs tons, or moving cargo that weighs tons, and there is this human being inside it, right, and moving it around. So I just kind of like become like this superhuman being, and I think I don't know if that I would call it necessarily plagiarism. Plagiarism is when I take someone else's thought and I try to publish it, try to give it to the teacher or whatever, saying that it's mine. That's a very conscious illegal activity, right? That obviously is, and we know we have Turnitin and other devices that but that's a separate discussion from this. I think that ChatGPT actually enhances what we already know and helps us move our thinking, our critical thinking, our analysis, our communication skills to a higher level that would probably, again, as I mentioned earlier, would take us quite a bit of time to achieve otherwise. Now, when it comes to the access to the database, you mentioned the example of Riverside. I agree. I think ChatGPT, as in its current form, already it says there on their website that the information that they have is really whatever could be found on the internet through 2021 or something like that. Well, I already read an article that, I don't know, Washington, New York Times, whoever it was. I read about this all the time. There's NPR podcast as well on it. And I tell you, whatever it means, but the chat is going to be some 500 times more powerful by spring. And all they really need to do is plug it into live internet, and here goes, the idea of keeping it local, right? I mean, it's going to pretty much, it will address the issues that people perhaps even discuss in private chats on Facebook. I mean, think about it. You can do that, right? In a sense that, you can ask for chat to GTP to give you ideas, what is it that people, how is Riverside City discussed on Twitter? Give me an analysis or outline for a discussion. It will do it. Writing songs, poems, I mean, that's just, okay, we are done. I mean, okay, right. I mean, this is like, creative writing classes. We've closed the doors practically on this, right? I mean, I don't know what else to do about this. And now one thing, Denise, I agree. Some people do bring up this aspect of personal experience, right? Why don't you write, hey, you're not going to use GPT for that because you know who you are. Well, okay, there are a couple of issues here. I could ask Chat, hey, write about my experience as person who has gone through these things in life, right? Okay, so this is what my parents, who my parents were. This is my grandparents' experience. This is my immigrant story, and I can write it in with key phrases, right? I come from Poland. I speak Polish as my first language, and I've done my bachelor's is in English, my master's is in education, and so forth, right? And I can just say those things, and then Chat is going to spit it out, and I say, okay, I just need 2,000 words about it, and then I can copy and paste, and then again, it's intelligent. So I can ask ChatGPT to rephrase it, to write it at the 7th grade level or a university level, however I want to do it. and I can do it in any language that there is out there. So really, sky is the limit. I think that, for us, we can kind of like push aside this discussion about trying to catch students in the act of making use of it, right? This is not what we should be doing, because again, we certainly welcome it, or again, if I need a topic, an outline for a conversation, I happen to be talking about learning with our HR staff, how in the world am I supposed to connect human resources to student learning? I ask ChatGPT and I have an outline for a conversation in an instant. Guess what? Now I have 5, 6, 7, 8 points to talk about already. All I have to do is, okay, I'm going to put my brain to it, and I'm going to say, okay, point number 1, please elaborate. I don't understand this. Okay, there is your answer. It's just, like, again, when you think about it, it's just really unlimited. The number of options are completely unlimited because, again, intelligence is unlimited. One thing that I have heard over the years, not very recently, one thing when it comes to artificial intelligence, if artificial intelligence is designed to harm, it's not intelligent. And that's kind of like, makes me think, okay, that would be the limit. I agree that artificial intelligence should not be there to harm anybody, right? So if we think that artificially intelligent monsters are going to wake us up one day, knock on the door and say, we don't live here anymore, they should not do it, right? So we should have curbs on that. And I know that there is already conversations starting, again, do some research with newspapers and magazines who write about it. But other than that, I think we need to think how ChatGPT and other AI-oriented tools can help us grow and become better human beings, rather than just to shoot it down in the name of defending the educational system as we know it. So this would be my lengthy answer to your points, Denise, because again, you brought a myriad of issues. So thank you so much. Let me see here. Who comes next? Anyone? Let me see. Morshed, you have your camera on, so I'm going to pick on you. Would you please elaborate on what is your experience like? And I think you're unmuted already.
Yes, thank you,
excellent.
Jarek.
My pleasure.
I teach at Moreno Valley College, and I also teach at a CSU campus. So this is a new concept to me. I just came across these terms just recently, but my experience teaching at CSU and Moreno Valley College this fall semester, I noticed few things that when I changed, and this was the first time after COVID, I went back to teach at CSU campus in person, and I teach economics. And I had to change some of those, I changed some of the tests, and I added some short essay type questions. And I was surprised to see how poorly the students did in the short essay type questions. And they were, I think, picking random answers from the internet. It had nothing to do with the context or whatever we covered in that particular chapter. The answers were coming from all over. Right. So to go back to what Denise has mentioned, that gave specific assignments. So I had my students go to the Federal Reserve System and look into the particular beige book and added the discussion forum. The students just missed it. Maybe 20% student came with the right answers, and the other answers were just all over. Right. So this is a very important topic, and AI, we all understand that, but we have to take the answers or whatever they're writing. We have to be cautious. So it's a scary part to me that to even think that, do we change what do we change the way we are teaching? Because it's such a broad thing. Students especially, I kept hearing that these are okay COVID kids. They came with so much baggage, so much different attitude, and the classrooms were different than pre-COVID. So those of us who have been teaching for a long time, we know things are so different now. So on top of that, this AI thing. So going back to, I want to agree with Denise say that give specific assignments to the students and let them come back. And really, that will help you understand whether they're even reading the book or they're giving the answers from all over. So with economics, yes, you can write so many things, but what the Bureau of Economic Analysis or Bureau of Economic Statistics are giving specific examples could be totally different if they simply just Google a question to come back with their specific answers, and they don't even bother to follow the rubric. So there's lot of good things about AI, but as an instructor, we have to be very careful and cautious what kind of answers they're bringing to the table.
Right, absolutely, yes. So the quality of the answer is something that you can obviously always demand. And again, I'm not sure if I said that in this session, but with ChatGPT, cat is out of the bag, so to speak. So in other words, it's a program that is here to stay, right? We can't just deny that it exists. And I tell you, I think again, one of those texts that I just read recently, whatever it means, it's going to be about 500 times more powerful by spring. And again, once it's connected to their live internet, then sky is the limit as far as this personalization or data accuracy and glitches that still exist. So I agree. I think this is something that we will have to reckon. And you ask a very important question: how do we teach? What do we do? And I think that's what everybody's struggling with. And again, in the SLO Symposia and the Friday talks that we've been having, we've been talking about this cultural shift between what is happening in the classroom, namely moving the sage from the stage and really empowering students by focusing on what it is that students can do. So in other words, it really doesn't matter what faculty do, what faculty introduce students to, or what they project, or what they try students to what faculty try to get students to do, but instead what it is that students actually do. Because see, learning, especially these days, and COVID certainly engraved this in our brains, that online education is just fine. We are going to survive this. We can do things via Zoom. So now what it is that students can actually do is quite different from what we write on our syllabus. This is an introductory course. It doesn't matter whether this is an introduction or not. Students learn anywhere, anytime. It's a human property. We start our lives by asking for milk, let's say, and we won't get it until we learn the language that's spoken around us, right? So there is so many things that we are doing every single day, every single interaction. Every time I turn on the TV, every time I look at YouTube, every time I Google something up, I learn something. Something is reaffirmed. I learn something new. My critical thinking changes, my skills when it comes to analysis of a phenomena change. So all these things happen all the time. And again, for us to deny that ChatGPT exists just so that we can kind of like hold on to this, to those last remaining aspects of faculty as the only knowledge brokers is not the discussion that we should be having here. Instead, again, I think this is a million, if not billion-dollar question here. What are we supposed to do? And for now, it seems like, again, the assumption is that students learn everywhere under any circumstances. Here's the ChatGPT. The question is, how am I going to assess what they have learned? And I think that this discussion between learning and assessment is where we need to be heading. And I tell you, so far, I don't really have any answers to questions. What am I supposed to do as an English instructor in my composition class? Because really, homework as we know it is out the window. There is just no way that we can safely say, please write a 3-page essay comparing to textbooks, to texts. There is a podcast on NPR, you can probably look it up, of a teacher who teaches high school English, and he says that, you know, that was his panic attack at first, because what he did to all his students is, as a pretest, at some point in the semester, he would ask students to compare 2 books that are completely unrelated. And students had 3 weeks to read books and to write write essays that compare the 2 books. And he asked that question of ChatGPT, and he was given an answer that, again, B+ was hands down. He was absolutely taken aback, and now he's trying to figure out, considering that this part of his assessment is gone, this is not something that he can possibly replicate anymore, what it is that he's going to do and how he's going to teach writing, composition, and really the craft of writing that we have always been teaching to students for ages now. When you think about it, right? If this is taken away from us and it's done by someone else, then what are we supposed to do now? What would be the next steps? So for now, my working really idea about how to utilize ChatGPT and other AI tools is that, considering that all these things are at students' disposal, let's look at assessment. Let's look at skill, at competency, what it is that students can do. And assessment, again, will probably have to be administered in this, what we know as direct assessment structure, which means that we are observing students at the time of them demonstrating what it is that they can do. And that, unfortunately, right now can be only done in the classroom. So who knows? Maybe that's how we should we should start thinking about our institutions. Instead of having students come listen to a lecture, instead, well, here are the aspects of my topic of study. This is what you need to know. Again, focus on the competency, focus on student learning outcome. This is what you need to get out of this class, not what I'm going to cover. I'm not going to cover anything. I'm only going to guide you as a faculty, as a professor, as a person who is responsible for your learning. I'm going to structure the discussion for you, and I will make sure that you get these competencies. This is how you're going to attest to the fact that you know them. And here's the classroom. On December 15th, we are going to open room 209 on my campus. You go there, take the test. Without any computers, without anything else, with a piece of paper even, or let's just say computer, perhaps with word processing program on it, without access to anything else. That's probably the best I can think of right now, but that's why I'm having these conversations, so that people like you can inform my thinking. So thank you very much, Morshed, for your comments. Michael, please, you are up next.
Thank you. I actually just I had ChatGPT. I signed up for it, but I haven't actually tried anything with it. And I just asked it a couple of questions, and some of them were provided good answers, and some of them provided nonsensical answers. Okay. But anyway, what I was discussing this issue, not specifically ChatGPT, but essay generators and ease of finding answers on the internet, with a couple of people who are in their 80s and went to school back in the days of the Soviet Union when it was still a thing. That's right. Their response was, I don't see a problem. Just when we were in university, all the exams, you had to show up in person and talk to the professor, and the professor asked you questions, and it doesn't matter how much you cheated on your submitted assignments. If you didn't know what you were talking about, you would fail. Why don't you just start doing that? And the only thing I could answer is, well, I am a volunteer. In my case, I'm a volunteer, get paid an honorarium for an online university. I don't have the time to do this with every single student, and it's not part of my mandate to do that. And most universities just don't have the resources. Is this something that we're just going to have to start doing, or else we're just not going to be able to evaluate students?
Excellent point. And I tell you, to be honest, from what I remember, again, I have gone through higher education in Poland, and the reason, or most of it, the reason for this face-to-face assessment with the faculty, with the professor, was actually cost. We simply did not have enough money to produce endless scantrons or machinery or people who would process this. So that's why we had to. We would go, when you think about it, okay, here's the final weeks. What's the story here? If you have enough students and you don't have to, sure, if you have, in your class, you have 100 or 200 students and you cannot possibly interview them in a week, then you get TAs or split the courses into different frames or however you need to do it, but it's just a matter of personnel who get paid for being at the university anyway. So who knows, Michael, that maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. We are going to have written essays in one room and then conversations with the professors in the other. The problem here is that, again, professors are human beings, and we are running into this again. Well, I don't know if you articulated this well enough. I just heard another student say something different, and it's this subjectivity of assessment that comes into play. And I tell you, I have experienced this quite a bit, in a sense that different teachers treat different students differently. And when you have one-on-one conversation, there is just no, well, I mean, you can always have 2 or 3 other people who are going to be in some kind of a panel that are going to interview you. But then again, you run into this issue of personal and how are you going to actually administer it. So perhaps there is something to be said about it. Again, to me, there may be some equity-related issues because, again, teachers and students are human beings, right? We all react differently to different people. And, I look at your picture and I just absolutely love it. And there is someone else who is going to be, presenting a different picture that may have some, I may have different associations with, and I'm not going to respond to that person as well. So these things need to be considered as well. But I tell you, one-on-one conversation is perhaps not a bad idea or not a bad example of how we can move the conversation forward. So thank you, Michael. Denise, go ahead.
So you had mentioned, the idea of watching students doing the activity, and it reminded me of the flipped classroom, right? And flipped lessons.
That's right.
And that would be a way, I was talking to someone in the session prior, and I've rearranged my classes so that about 1/3 of my lessons are flipped. The students do the work at home. I don't care how they do it, how long it takes them or whatever. And then they come to class and then they have to be able to perform. And so that would be, one solution to, at least for, the kind of day-to-day assessments that we do of students, can they do that performance, whatever it is, a speech or a skit or presentation, whatever it is.
Absolutely, yes. Flipped classroom is an idea whose time has come, but I tell you, it's not like everyone is all of a sudden jumping on the bandwagon, right? I mean, again, this is really cultural barriers, and I think the issue with faculty, and I know we've been discussing this quite a bit, is that all of us, faculty, as a group of professionals, we have gone through educational system, and it worked for us because we are where we are. We are faculty, right? I mean, we are not, we are not people who are not educated. We certainly have gone through the system, and we know what we are talking about when we do. So if this system worked for us, well, then it's got to work for others. And the only tool that we have at our disposal is this very deeply ingrained conviction that what we do is the right thing, because it worked for us. What's the next question? If you're just not getting what I'm telling you, then guess what? In higher ed, we have a solution. We have a course. If you're short on reading, there is a course for that. If algebra is not your thing, no matter how many years you've been taking it, there is an algebra course waiting for you. And please do this exercise. Go to YouTube, and I've done it many times over the years, and look up something like, okay, Physics 101 college lecture on YouTube, and go ahead and listen to it as an educated professional. And I tell you, those lectures are an hour and a half, 2 hours. You know what? You will not last 15 minutes through it. It's just truly amazing that faculty, again, with the best of intentions, really laying their hearts out there. I mean, we all do what we do with passion, and that cannot possibly be denied. But the outcome of it is you just look at students' faces. And you know why? It's because, again, learning happens everywhere all the time. There are certain phrases, certain concepts that faculty explain that are 100% clear to me. Others I've known and they are boring. And then there are some that are completely new to me, but they are so new that I don't even know how to relate to them in the context of the lecture. And there are 100 people in the audience, and there's just no way for me to ask a question of a professor. Would you just please clarify this one thing for me? Because by the end you're done talking, I will probably forget. We just don't have that. And again, the concept of flipped classroom addresses that very, very, very well. I think that's why, again, it is a good idea. And now you look at competency-based education, focus on what it is that students can do rather than what they listen to, is quite different. And now I believe that ChatGPT is going to really open up the realm of really the floor for discussions that we denied to have over the years, because ultimately students are the ones who will have to tell us what it is that they can do as a result of their learning. How they learn, where they learn is completely immaterial. All they have to do is demonstrate it to the faculty who are the subject experts. Morsheed, you have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Please.
I just wanted to add a couple of comments. I'm part of two initiatives at CSU. One is why they have so high DFW rates. And the other one is I'm doing a professional development with a group of faculties about contemplative pedagogy and procrastination. So the comment I wanted to add is, yes, we can scratch our head and we can try to figure out whether we should be flipping our class or what kind of assignments can we give so that they can't, cheat or plagiarize or whatever you want to call those. So this semester in my orientation for all my in-person classes, I added an orientation module and I added one question, and I created a Google Doc simply asking what emotions do you come up with after you've reviewed the syllabus?
Right.
And I wanted to get a feel from my students. And it's amazing because we may be thinking we have created this so nice class for their students, but the anxiety level and their mental illness, it has reached such a level. Their anxiety is so high. Maybe sometimes we just don't realize as faculties that where they're coming from. We may get to know this on week 8, and this 20% students, I think, wherever they are, they would try to ace the class. And the 20% students, maybe, I don't have the statistics, I'm just making this thing up. And maybe 20%, they just would procrastinate wherever they're coming from, whatever they have on their plate, because they may be, I don't know, they may have a job, they have so much other responsibilities. So our students come to our classroom with so much stuff compared to what we have gone through. Right. In our generation. Right. So I think we just have to factor those things also, why they're not doing. And maybe that's why at the last minute, all they want to do is just Google the question and try to pick up the answer and just dump it so that they can
Right.
still get a C or B or whatever in their
That's
class.
right.
So I just wanted to add that I'm noticing when I saw their response in the Google Doc, I was just amazed to see. I didn't realize how much anxiety they may have. Some are just, looking forward, this is a class, but some, they're just admitting their anxiety and the mental illness part. So
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very, very important point, Murshid. The issue here is that students, like everyone else, it's not that we want to necessarily take shortcuts, but we are not giving a choice sometimes, right? When you have when you're taking 3, 4, 5 classes or whatever your maximum load is, and then you have your your life that happens outside of the classroom, then why wouldn't you take advantage of shortcuts that are offered, right? And you're absolutely right. Geography is not my thing. It will never determine, or at least I think right now, it will never have any impact on my life. Why don't I just get it out of the way? I'm happy with a B- and I'm walking away. C+, okay, fine, not a problem. I'll be okay with that. So the idea here is, again, not to try to guard the system as we know it, that's based on grades and this, the course completion, but rather on what it is that students can do. Because guess what? As a geography professor, I can tell you, I can assure you, as a matter of fact, it's a research project for you, not for me to tell you, but I can only stress the fact that geography is something that impacts your life all the time. And please tell me how. I will let you do it. Please don't take my word for it. As a matter of fact, geography will leave its footprint on your psyche, whether you like it or not, as a human being. This is what's going to happen to you. This is what happens to you. This is what happened to you. We are done with this discussion. So now, please bring this to me and use your analytical thinking skills and show me how geography impacts your life, even though you dislike it so much right now and you think that there is resentment to it. So you start the discussion again from the bigger picture, so to speak, from the competency and skill perspective, from the perspective of an understanding that, gosh, we are in it together. It all happens all the time. It's for us to figure out the little bits and pieces, and GPT is going to definitely help us achieve that. It's just that, again, the work that we will have to do in terms of relearning what it means to teach, to empower others, to enlighten others, that's a completely different discussion. And I tell you, we are just barely starting to scratch the surface of it. And again, flipped classroom is a good example. Switching the roles of students and the teacher, making sure that students are participants in their own learning. That alone is revolutionary. It has been for a number of years now. And then Marisa, would you please say, would you mind elaborating on your experience? I see you posted in the chat room.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that no matter what tool comes out, there's always pros and cons. So it's just how we use it for good, because there are going to be negative uses to every tool. And it's kind of scary, but another tool I posted in the chat is that Microsoft is going to, I guess, buy ChatGPT for billions, and they're going to also release an audio AI text-to-speech tool where you can just record 3 seconds of your voice, or I think 3 seconds of your voice, and it'll turn it into, it'll create an audio clip of, in your voice.
Sure.
And your audio. Yeah. So there's that coming up as well. So students can use it for presentations or projects. So.
Right. Of course. So again, I think you're bringing up an important point here, because the world is moving on whether we like it or not. I just read that Microsoft, you may have heard that news, right? Microsoft is investing billions of dollars in the artificial intelligence. So you just imagine that you have a PowerPoint that's going to do an outline on any topic in a fraction of a second only because you ask it to do it. So you're going to say, okay, I'm about to talk about astrophysics. I have no clue what the topic is about, but I need to have an outline for an introductory discussion about astrophysics. What are the potential topics? And you're going to get it in PowerPoint in a beautiful layout. You show it in the Zoom meeting, and it obviously makes you look like you're an expert already. And all you really need to do is ask the chat to generate a narrative for each one of the points, and you're done. And you're speaking like an astrophysicist. And then if anyone asks a question, all you have to do is perhaps, again, 2 weeks from now, I'm sure it's going to happen in real time, that you're going to ask a question of an AI and it will respond in your own voice. So there we go. Again, in some aspects of it, it is scary, and I understand how people can panic because it's so revolutionary. I mean, truly, if you remember those days when internet happened, right? And we were all, wow, look at this. This is something yet completely different. Yet one more thing, one more attestation to the fact that the world is changing, whether we like it or not, and it's kind of like happening behind our backs. And we wake up in the morning and we just don't know what to expect next. It's really staggering in many of those regards. So yes, Marisa, absolutely. There is software, there are AI tools, and if you Google them, you will find them, and there is tons of YouTube videos now that explain to you how you can use them, what you can do with them. So just to give you some examples, when it comes to photography, art, music composition, songwriting, poetry, video editing, animation, you name it. I mean, when you think about it, each one of these is a separate department at our college. I don't really know what to do. I mean, when it comes to chemistry or computer science, I am sure that there are people who are having discussions about how to deal with this, because again, there isn't really an area that's not going to be impacted by this, especially in the classroom. Let me see here. Anyone else who would like to add anything to the discussion? We did talk a little bit about plagiarism, and the question is, that I always have in my mind is, why we call it plagiarism. That I think that discussion need to be again moved aside. I don't know if it's necessarily cheating if I again find a gap in my understanding or in my knowledge online, instead of disrupt the meeting or look for answers in more traditional ways by driving to the library, looking for a book, finding that it's on page 78 out of the 300, or I even think of YouTube videos, right, that are 10, 15, an hour and a half long. Gosh, I have to listen through everything really just to find this one thought that I am after. ChatGPT is the answer, I hope. Anyway, so that's where we are with this. Anybody else who would like to comment on this? We still have about 10 minutes to go. Michael, you're the, oh, Patricia, you have your camera on, so I get to pick on you. So please, what is your experience?
Okay, well,
Have you tried it?
yes, and I actually had a student last semester and fall semester that I could not prove he could write great papers, except that he couldn't write in class. So there was a discrepancy there. So I questioned everything that he wrote. And I always do a thorough job, and sorry, but I am going to use the word plagiarism. And so when I started teaching winter session, I used ChatGPT as a teaching tool. I opened it, I showed the students how to use it, and I said, I am aware of what it can do, so make sure you do your own work. I am pretty prescriptive sometimes, particularly with ChatGPT coming out. So I have articles that students take from databases, from the library databases. So I'm aware. I do all my background research ahead of time. I have stacks of research that I can show the students, and I use them in the classroom. I teach in the fall, I will teach, or spring, I will teach 4 online and 4 face-to-face. And I teach full-time at one college and part-time at another college. And at first, I was afraid of ChatGPT because of the ability of the students to find anything, but I use it as a tool to get background information, but still the students have to put information into an essay or essays using particular subtopics that I choose, and they can do that. I mean, but they can only do that if we discuss the topics, if they've read the information, and they have to use direct quotations. So they have to have read and understood something. They can't just use abstracts from the articles. So we do write in class in my 4 face-to-face. And what else can I say? I understand that a prompt can be modified. And so in the spring, I always do short-term and peer editing, I'll call it that. And they can see what each other write, and they can use each other's ideas, but they still have to make sure that they are using the ideas correctly and succinctly and in a something that meets the subtopics. A lot of students can't do that. And so part of what we have in the 2 places I teach is library competency. So my name's on that transcript, and I make sure that those students know how to research. So research is a big component in what I do. So if I'm turning those students over to 4 years, I want to make absolutely sure that they know how to research.
Absolutely.
And I have used Flip.
That's right.
I have used Flip Classroom before, and it works.
It works.
And also, when I teach my online classes, I have used Respondus, and I can't say it's perfect, but I do have my students come one day, which is the final day, the day of the final, or the penultimate day, and then they actually write for me in class. So that satisfies my online component. When I had that student in the fall, I used Turnitin. I found, it's called zerochat.com, and I could not find anything that told me that student was plagiarizing. Basically, what I had to do was, again, the in-class writing was my only recourse. So that's about all.
That's right. That's right. And I tell you, I think, Patricia, that's the conclusion that we are reaching, that considering flipped classroom, right? Let's just say that ChatGPT takes the concept of a flipped classroom to a different level, right? That it's not just a textbook that students are going to be opening at home. They can access the internet, they can ask questions, they can write papers, they can do whatever they want to learn. However, once they show up in your classroom, hey, guess what? Now you're on my turf. You're going to be in the classroom, and please, this is a topic that I would like you to consider, analyze, write on. And here's your pencil, and here's your paper. And probably, again, this is the only way I can think that this is going to work, so that we don't drive ourselves crazy trying to figure out what tools students have used before they turned in the paper, and whether they did it on their own or someone helped them. I mean, again, students will always look for shortcuts, and again, it's not just students, they are human beings just like us. If there is an opportunity for us to do something in a shorter period of time or a better efficiency, we are all for it. So students' behavior is not necessarily an aberration in this regard. And all we really need to do is, again, consider the structure of the classroom as we know it. So if students can learn everything anywhere, what is it that they can demonstrate in the classroom? And that would be this idea, the concept of direct assessment. There is actually a vendor who is talking about, you can look him up. It's Go React is the product that he's using. It's the idea of documenting direct assessment. Sorry, Patricia, I think you had something else to say.
Yeah, I just forgot it. Sorry. I was going to say, people who teach content, I don't teach content, I teach skill. So if they can perform, that's what I want to know. And that's my assessment. My assessment is, can they perform? And it doesn't really matter what they write about, where they get the knowledge, just as long as they can back it up. I always tell my students, I don't care what you say, as long as you can back it up. And that's where the research comes in.
Absolutely. And again, that's the concept of the flipped classroom, and that's where we are. So who knows? I think I said that already. If we could envision our institutions as really nothing but testing centers, I don't know what else to call it, where students would come in just for the sake of again demonstrating what it is that they can do in the spirit of the moment in front of faculty. Otherwise, trying to again, especially in the Zoom classroom, that's almost impossible to tell these days what are the tools that are at students' disposal when they address the professor in an online environment. It's really let's just say that that's not the discussion that we need to have, because we will just not win at this point. So that's where we are. Patricia, thank you so much. Those are absolutely spot on comments. Thank you very much for the rich discussion.
Thank you.
Denise, Michael, Marisa, anybody else? Morshed, anybody else who would like to speak at this point? Any more final comments? Byron, you're next on my list. So what is your experience with ChatGPT? What brings you here? Byron Russell, I see you are there. Okay, Byron is maybe attending a different session at the same time. Well,
sorry,
yeah.
I'll
Oh yes, go ahead, Byron. I picked on you because I know you're going to pick up at some point.
The thing that I wanted to say about it is just that that I'm more familiar with AI being used as an image generator, rather than for text purposes. And I'm thinking about ways that I can use it in my video and animation classes to extend on what the students can do on their own by, say, having an AI make a background for them or something like that.
That's right.
But I'm just curious about the subject in general. And, I have friends that do things with AI, and I have other people that are artist friends that are really dead set against it. But I tend to be more on the side of people who say, well, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. So let's look at it and understand it rather than ruling on it before we see what it does.
But see, I'm really glad that I picked on you, because you have just illustrated what English teachers can probably take from what you just said, that you create the background for an image, right? Just imagine that again, instead of spending hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to describe medieval Europe, I will have ChatGPT write it for me, and then I'm going to put elements that are only mine. And again, Chat is going to articulate them for me, because my English skills are just not as good as obviously the computers. But then again, I can always ask the computer to write it at my level. So I can say, okay, give it to me as a college freshman or as a high school student. And it's going to happen just as well. But then it's going to be my thinking, my analysis that's going to drive it. And now I know how I can be empowered as a student, what a good, well-written paper, what a good piece of composition looks like. Now I can replicate it when I go back to Patricia's classroom to take the test. So that's Byron, very, very insightful. And I agree that for you, it's probably, the impact is very significant because, you know, I have kids at home, and I tell you, my son created a picture of a banana on a skateboard. And you know, what can it possibly be? And I tell you, he generated 15 pictures, and number 16 is just absolutely to die for. It's just piece of art that he created by giving the commands to the AI. So the same obviously can happen with English. So again, the discussion is to be continued. The implications are just absolutely profound. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for this discussion. Byron, thank you very much for your insights. Michael spoke, so I'm just grateful for Marisa, Denise, Patricia. Really, I certainly enjoyed the rich discussion. I hope to see you in future sessions. I have one more after lunch. We are going to have a panel discussion. I'll see you around. Any more questions, you know where to find me. Send me an email. We'll continue. Thank you very much. I'm always willing and anxious to hear about everyone's experience. Thank you again for joining me. Take care. Until next time.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Yara Chiano, and this is session number 3, talking about ChatGPT and other AI or artificial intelligence influence on what it is that we do in our classrooms, in our institutions, the impact on faculty and students, teaching and learning, everything that's surrounding the topic. So thank you very much for joining me again, for those of you who are here to continue the discussion, and I'm certainly happy to see people who are joining us for the first time. This is ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. I think we can call it broadly because there is really many more tools than just ChatGPT these days. In the previous sessions, I already mentioned that this is, you know, we can say that the cat is out of the bag, right? We can't put things back and pretend that they don't exist. And the reaction in higher education institutions, and I suppose K-12 is the same, is raging from this utter happiness that the tool is available to faculty and students, to the opposite side of the spectrum, where the tools, artificial intelligence tools, are banned or just completely forbidden and cannot be used by faculty or students. So here we are to discuss what it is that we as faculty, administrators, as college community, as students, what is it that we can do, and how can we utilize it? There is really a number of issues that surround the topic, and the ones that seem to be coming back with certain degree of consistency is the question of plagiarism and students using the tool for their benefit, obviously, to bypass the judgment, the requirement, the guidelines or expectations set up for them by their faculty. So we could probably start the conversation with that, if you like. It is pretty much an open mic. I'm here to listen to you and inform the discussion to the extent that I can. And I don't necessarily claim to be an expert on the issue at all. I just happen to be very much interested in this, realizing that our artificial intelligence is a phenomena that is going to, if it hasn't already, or let's just say it has already started making a lot of waves in education as we know it. So from English teachers who are practically panicking because, you know, from now on we can't really teach critical writing skills by simply assigning homework to students, for example, all the way through computer science, where we know that ChatGPT can generate all kinds of code through math, history. You just name a discipline, and the impact is there, and it's there right now. It's not anything that might happen, that will happen. It has been happening to a larger degree since last semester. So we are where we are with this. Let me just add some more folks here, and I apologize. I should have perhaps disabled the waiting room so that people can join us freely. And here we are. So let's see here. Maybe Andrew, if you don't mind, do you have any remaining thoughts, comments, questions? I know you attended the previous session. Well, what is your take on it? Do you have any brilliant thoughts to the people who have just joined us?
So my take on it is, I think over the last couple months, I've been thinking about it. It's been changing. So, from sort of apathy. So I teach physics, and what I've seen, it kind of repeats mistakes that I'm used to seeing from human responses, which I suspect it was trained on, to making it a teaching tool. So at the stage it's at, where it does make some of the common mistakes. So if you read the people who have tried it, they will say it gives like B responses as opposed to A level response. And so at the stage it's at, you can actually use it as a way to generate examples of what are some typical mistakes people make, and use it as a starting point for a lesson. And Jarek shared, so there are people working on improved version of this. What about when it's an A-level thing? And it's a new thing, and I think it's going to be evolving. I feel like we'll get a lot more out of it, thinking of a ways to use it to teach versus how to ban it. Because like in an in-person instructional setting, I think you can find times when, you shouldn't use it. It's like not being allowed to use calculator for certain types of exams. Right. But when it's like a homework where it's not easy to ban.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I think you meant when you talk about level B versus A, right? So again, it's something, something could be said about it. And let's just say I'm not going to necessarily argue with people who claim that, I can easily tell whether this has been done by ChatGPT versus students themselves, right? Fine. If you have the magic wand and you can tell the difference, then more power to you. The issue here is that I don't know if if other faculty members feel the same way, right? That would be number one. Then the issue of grade, B or A, grade B with some, let's just say B plus is a respectable grade, and especially when it comes to subjects that I don't necessarily personally care for, or there's this dreaded biology class with the professor I really detest, and here's what I do. I go to ChatGPT, make them make the software do my work. I'll submit it to the professor. As long as I get it, boom, she's a B in biology. Never thought about that, and I'm home free kind of a thing. On top of it, the issue is that again, the concept is here. So let's just say 6 months ago, it wasn't even on anybody's radar. Let's say 2 years ago, we were thinking about it like science fiction, like artificial intelligence. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen, 2050 or something like that, right? And all of a sudden, it's already here. And what we need to consider is that the software, the program, the platform as we know it now is only bound to get better. One of the articles that I read on the topic says that the ChatGPT is going to be 500 times more powerful by the end of spring semester in May. What did that mean? What does that mean? I honestly have no clue as far as I'm concerned, how can it possibly be any better? The only thing that I see that's missing in it is that there is a disclaimer on web chat GPT website that says that the information that's there is only good through 2021, through the year 2021, right? So that means that probably means that to make it 500 times better, more powerful, it will be plugged into live internet. So if I were to ask the program, hey, what's the weather like in Anchorage, Alaska? It will tell me right now, and then perhaps, you know, the weather forecast for the near future as well, which it cannot do right now because, again, it only has the data through 2021. But as far as the reach to the different databases and perhaps, again, people who are familiar with how the how the intelligence aspect behind the software works will probably assure me that the critical analysis and the ability to for the software to put things together, to connect the dots, is going to be only getting stronger. Then, you know, again, we have another thing coming at us as far as educators are concerned, as far as education is concerned, and as far as educators as a professional group is concerned. So here we are again, just to talk about this. And again, I agree with Andrew. This is something that's going to impact everything that we do. And education probably is you know, I'm sure it's not the beginning, because other disciplines, other areas of our daily lives are experiencing the impact of it. I'm only thinking of all those people who are working as editors for a living, those who write all kinds of different things, you know, newspaper articles and whatnot. They may have to rethink their futures, I guess, and then it goes maybe Andrew or other computer programmers, if they are around here, maybe you could share your experience, what it is that you are afraid of, or how do you think you're going to use it in your classroom, in your area, for your benefit. Then that's where we are. Let me see here. Deborah, do you mind? I'll just pick on you because you happen to be first one on my list. Deborah Blanchard, if you could please, would you share with us what is your experience and what brought you to this session? Why would you like to talk about this, learn more? Oh, sorry, I have to unblock you, I think. I apologize, it's not my, okay, try again.
Okay.
Oh, that's it, sorry, thank you again.
Yes. You know, this conversation is only just starting on our campus. I think some of the articles that came out this last week even has generated some conversation. And I think I'm just kind of intrigued at, you know, I don't know as much about it, I think, as maybe I'm maybe not as alarmed by it as some of the other faculty that I've been encountering on campus are. And that is interesting because I do come from like a teaching, writing background and those kinds of things.
What is your discipline, or do you teach at all?
You know, right now I just moved into the position where I'm in charge of the program assessments on campus. But before that, I was a director of a first-year seminar, and I had taught in the writing program and the first-year seminars, which are academically based. But my background is actually in English and literature. All right. But I think that, you know, I think some of the alarm, some of the concern is that I think that you mentioned was, you know, when it comes to writing papers, you know, how do we make sure that students are doing the work and learning those foundational skills for critical thinking and communication and those things that we need to do. But maybe it means that we have to just change how we're assessing some of that within the classroom. And maybe it's not like the 20-page research paper, you know, that we're using as that form of, you know, that tool within the classroom to see that they're learning. Maybe they're actually writing in the classroom. Maybe there's different ways for us to be thinking about being able to still, you know, evaluate what students are learning at that course level part of things. But maybe also, I think, to what Andrew was saying, there might be ways to utilize this technology as a tool for learning.
Right.
And we might not know what that looks like yet because I think it's so new. And so I think that there's always an anxiety in higher ed around something new, particularly when it comes to technology. I remember when Turnitin was added into our LMS, and it was a plagiarism software, and everyone was like, oh, you know, that's maybe it's too invasive, maybe it's, whatever.
Right,
I think that there's just kind of a learning curve in higher ed with educators.
So you're absolutely right. There is the learning curve is one thing, but I think that, again, it's not only in educators. I'm sure that, any area of expertise that exists outside of higher education, be it engineering or medicine, I'm sure that they experience, the impact of this as well in their own respective areas and however they this pertains to them. But when it comes to faculty, you are absolutely right. The English professors, please make a note of it. I lost the link, but there is an NPR podcast, Spot On, I want to say. I'm not really sure what's the name of it is, but it's an NPR podcast on an AI, and there is a five-minute talk by a high school professor of English who says that historically, for a long time of his career, he always expected students to write an essay about 5, maybe even 15 pages, but something, a substantial work comparing 2 books that he wants them to read. So students had to read 2 books and then write an essay comparing the 2. And the difficulty there was that those books were almost impossible to compare. They were completely different in style and content. And students had to use really their critical thinking and really a lot of creativity before they reached any conclusions at the end of such paper. And the professor says that right now, as of last week or whenever GPT became reality, that assignment is practically out the window. He cannot possibly use it anymore because ChatGPT is going to write anything for anybody on any topic in any language at any level. I mean, I don't know if many of you may not realize that, but you can actually ask ChatGPT to write it at 7th grade level, at college level, university dissertation level, formal, less formal. How do I explain the meaning of life to a 5-year-old? There you go. There is the answer for you. So it's something that's truly amazing. It's really groundbreaking in more ways than one, right? In a sense that if I have any issues with my kids, just hold on a second here, let me ask, and I have the answer. And the difference here is that when it comes to Google, for example, we still have to know the keywords, which is okay, which is the same thing with ChatGPT. The difference is that with Google, when we click the search button, we get 2 million results, 2 million pages, and then we have to sift through them, look at specifically for information that's of interest to us. Then we have to evaluate the credibility of the site, and then we have to perhaps compare this with the references that are there, and just kind of like this research still goes on as if it were a library, let's say, as we know it, where we used to use index cards or even CDs, right, to access different materials. Now, ChatGPT has this aura of credibility, and you ask a question and you can seemingly get what you're asking for. So it's really quite different. And as far as faculty trying to bypass it or pretend that it doesn't exist, I don't think that that's going to take us far if we have discussions surrounding this, rather than what Andrew was saying. Let's see what is the tool how we take advantage of it as a tool. And Deborah, if your background is English, then yes, that's true. I do sympathize with English, specifically faculty. But then again, when you think about it, in many disciplines, we use writing as a good way for students to reflect on what they've learned, right? I mean, in geography, biology, okay, maybe not so much in physics and computer science, but there are many areas where writing an essay on a topic of study is how we do business. So again, our traditional way of doing homework is just not something that we can possibly even continue as of now. So that's where we are. So thank you so much, Deborah. Your comments have certainly stirred up quite a bit of discussion here in the chat. And let me go back to Yvonne, if you don't mind. Thank you very much, Deborah. Yvonne, would you please elaborate on your question here about why we should or should we ban the idea?
Yeah, so I'm just really curious because the reason that I joined this particular session is because I was like, I wonder what that's about. I haven't really been, I guess, keeping up with current events when it comes to AI in education. I'm an instructional designer and I work more on the technical side with our LMS system and, working with instructors on curriculum design and things like of that sort. So I'm not necessarily like I'm not in the trenches of, being the instructor and having to, differentiate when I get the assignment, hey, did this student really do this work or did they, go to ChatGPT, which I didn't even know what ChatGPT was before I joined this session. So really, it's just a question about, hey, what's going on in this world? And if this is something that there's so much confusion and, if it is such a divisive topic, which it seems to be, what is there any legislation that's being proposed when it comes to higher ed to ban it or to limit its use?
Okay,
like legal side.
Yes. So to be honest, no, I am not aware of any such thing as an effort to ban it. However, having said that, because what would be a body that would ban it, right? I mean, who could possibly ban Google? And if Google doesn't exist, then I'm sure there is something else that's going to pop up, right? I mean, we used to have those search engines. I'm sorry, on the online, from here to eternity, and they are still around, So the same thing with ChatGPT. I don't think that banning one is going to put end to them all. And even if this were the case, then why would we do it? In a sense that obviously finding answers, immediate answers, very specific, very focused answers to questions that we have is a very, very useful tool when you think about it, right? I mean, I can give you my own example. I've been experimenting with the tool for let's just say a few weeks now. I can't even say that it's been months since I discovered that, maybe 2 months. But anyway, the thing is that I was there in a meeting, and let's just say that there is a term that I'm just I've heard it before. I think I know what it is, and I'm just there are 17 people in the room. I am not going to kind of like hey, stop everybody. Hello, excuse me, just a minute. Could someone please elaborate on this issue? That even though people tell you there are no stupid questions in any meeting, right? I mean, you're always assured of that. Just wait until you ask one. So that's exactly my point here, that I am participating in a meeting, I don't understand something, I ask ChatGPT, and instead of 2 million possibilities, I get a specific answer to a specific question instantly. I am on, ready to go, participating in a minute, like nothing happened. Nobody even knows that I consulted the outside source. However, if I were to translate that into what's happening in the classroom, then this may be somewhat more challenging for faculty, right? Because we expect students to be thinking about certain ideas. So here's the question: what do we do? Is it something that we can allow students to do? Is it something that's going to be useful in the classroom? Is it something that we can perpetuate? As far as banning it, the question is, again, why would we do it? You may remember the story of calculators, right? That's exactly what happened when calculators became available to public at large for a low price, and then students all of a sudden starting doing multiplication on the keyboard. Well, can that be? They don't have to be spending months and years trying to remember multiplication tables and then doing everything mentally. No. Now they have those instruments. What are we going to do now? So it's sort of similar context of that discussion. And it's true that every time some new technology is coming up, I believe Deborah alluded to this, there isn't really necessarily a resentment or pushback. And resentment, I suppose, would be some natural reactions. And again, not necessarily of faculty, but all human beings, right? There is something new. I have to understand it first before I jump into it. So I think that's where we are. As far as banning, I know that there are colleges that I think have banned it altogether. I just again, I don't think that's a good idea. But again, that's why I'm here talking to you all to get a better understanding as to what it is that we know, where we are collectively, so that we can perhaps move the discussion about the application of ChatGPT and better understand the magnitude of its impact on our practices. Andrew, please.
Yeah, I had something to add in the sense that there is a usefulness of old tools and old techniques. So for those of us who went through graduate school, you might be familiar with the thesis defense. And in those advanced degree setting, you don't get the degree just based on your written work. You also present it. And we can bring some aspect of that into our classrooms, even at community college or K through 12 level, where it's not just the written assignments that we rely on. Students can write an essay and they can present it in front of class. And if they understand what was written, either by ChatGPT or themselves, then that'll show. And if they've been lazy and just made ChatGPT do everything, then in their presentation, it'll show. And sometimes people just don't present well. They just read off the presentation instead of actually explaining. And it could be an opportunity to teach people a valuable life skill, because in their profession, they probably should know how to present.
So I think well, let's just say that I think that cutting corners and getting to the point, is not necessarily what only our students do. It's a human trait. If there is something that we can do faster, we can do more efficiently, we are all for it. So it's not so it's true that teachers are kind of like, in this position where they think that they have to kind of like bend it down and say, okay, you guys, hold on, you have to think through it, and I'm going to guide you through this thinking process. It's just that, see, same thing here, just like with calculators, right? If there is if the problem is what's 7 times 8, and I don't understand the concept of multiplication, then I have to count 7, 14, and so forth, and I have to go through all those rows of numbers. It's going to take me, let's just say, 1.5 minutes to figure it out that it's 56. The same thing is here. When I ask a question of ChatGPT, let's just say I have tomorrow I have a conversation with HR, with people who know nothing about what's happening in the classroom about student learning. What am I going to tell them? I don't even know how to start. I can't have this conversation tomorrow. I'm going to postpone it a week from now because I have to think about it. I have to research this. Now, if I were to ask ChatGPT, I'm going to get an answer and outline right away. There is going to be, I'm going to ask, and you can probably using it, you can try it even right now. Please give me an outline for a conversation about student learning and HR staff, and let's see what happens. You're going to get, 5, 6, 7 points. And then all you really need to do, you ask the chat to, again, please elaborate on point 1. What are the important things I need to say? You're going to get an answer right away. And then all you really need to do is conceptualize it, at least for now, in what this would look like if you were to present it to people. And I think that that's where the part of cutting the corner comes in. But at the same time, as a professional, I find it very valuable because it saves me my valuable time. I don't have to sit there and try to figure out 1 after 2 after 3 just to be told at the end of the day, oh, you know what, but you forgot about points number 4 and 5. Well, you're right. Sorry, you got me. I really haven't thought about it. And now what happens, however, is that considering that artificial intelligence is becoming ubiquitous, we have programs that will create pictures for us just on the basis of the description. So there is pictures, there is video editing, there is computer code. I mean, you name it. computers can do those things these days, and they are only going to be becoming more and more powerful. And as someone already brought it to my attention, there are some programs that will imitate your voice and your speaking. So guess what? 6 months from now, I would be sitting here talking to you, and you know what? Would it even be me? So what are we going to do then? And I think that's a challenge that is going to be more and more profound, more and more acute in our dealings with people that we need to be educating. So again, the issue here is probably not to ban it or not to embrace it without any breaks, but rather figure out, design a way. And I'm sure that instructional design is a field that's just going to either collapse or absolutely flourish under the circumstances, to make sure that students learn what they're supposed to be learning. And here, I believe Yvonne used the word divisive, and I think that's where I see a clear division. We have arrived at the point, at the realization that learning is taking place everywhere. It's not in the classroom anymore. The teacher is not the only source of information, knowledge, or representation of any authority. The teachers are there to facilitate. We just listened to our panel discussion, and I was just so happy to hear one of the panelists did mention facilitator of learning. And I think that's who we are. We are not here as the only people who know everything and everyone in the classroom is supposed to listen or else. On the contrary, there are all kinds of sources of information outside of the classroom, and that's where the concept of the flipped classroom comes in. If you're not familiar with it, please look it up. It's flipped classroom. Flipped meaning that students study whatever it is that for them to study at home, and they bring whatever they've learned to the classroom to make it work in real life. So please try to look that up. And I think that that's where the division is, that students are going to be learning whatever it is that they have to learn anywhere they want, ChatGPT or anything else. And then they are going to be able to bring the skills and competencies that they have acquired under the direction of faculty in this rich learning environment and be tested, or their learning is going to be evaluated or assessed. So that's how I see the division here. I am pretty sure that's not Yvonne meant when she talked about the divisiveness of the whole issue, but that's how I see this clear division as to what it is that we are going to be doing in our educational structures as we know them as a result of this. Let's see who else is next. Yes, Enrique, go ahead.
So I'm going to put my shoes in some English faculty from our college. I already have a detector, so I'm not going to worry about it. I want to make sure that students are not plagiarizing.
Plagiarizing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and I'll be happy to address this. Enrique, just before I do, could you please take a look at what Andrew generated in the chat? This is the prompt that I asked him to take a look at. Response to a problem, give me an outline for conversation between HR staff and management about implications of ChatGPT. There you go. And you know what? All I do is I put it on PowerPoint. One thing, mind you, one thing that I think I need to make clear here. I have heard just last week, okay, maybe 10 days ago, but see, this is very, very fast changing landscape here. Microsoft Corporation has invested $10 billion, and they want to invest even more in artificial intelligence. So please imagine this: Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Publisher, whatever platform there is that's in Office 365 that we use extensively everywhere on the whole planet. Each one of those applications come with an AI embedded there. So what Andrew just generated in my PowerPoint is going to show up in my PowerPoint, and it's going to be enhanced by AI-generated pictures in the background, not the templates that everybody's been using for the last 50 years. No. This is going to be brand new with animation and sound effects. And again, my avatar speaking. I'm watching Netflix at the same time. This is my avatar speaking. Just imagine that. This is our future. And again, this is the future that I suppose is 3 months away from now, not 30 years. So that's what's coming. So thank you very much, Andrew, for taking the time to illustrate my point. I really appreciate this. Now, Enrique, if you could please, since you're asking about plagiarism, would you please elaborate, or what do you think? Where does plagiarism come in here?
I'm trying to put the you know, some of I had some conversations with some of my faculty, and they're worried, especially the English faculty, that, you know, when those essays are going to be turned in by students, that you know, it's going to be AI generated, and so therefore some say I already have a detector. Okay, so first of all, plagiarism, as far as I understand it, and please, I'm sure we have other experts in the room. Plagiarism is when you take someone else's work, right? And maybe Deborah, your English is background instructional design. I'm sure you know much more about it than I do. But plagiarism to me is when I grab somebody else's work and I copy and paste it, or I kind of like, you know, tweak it, and then I pass it on as mine. Then I'm going to say, you know, like, I don't know, a poem or lyrics to a song. I grab those things and I add 2 words, I add 3 words, and then I say, okay, this is Jarek Janio who wrote this, and Deborah as my teacher is going, oh wow, this is A+ work. Look at this. How it? Well, that's because Deborah hasn't listened to 1970s songs that I do, you know, and she has never heard of those poems or lyrics. And I'm here to tell her that this is my work. And she would be just so ecstatic, and we become best friends from now on. It's just that that's how I understand plagiarism. When it comes to ChatGPT, okay, you know, fine, somebody else is creating the work, whether that's for a fee or not. But the concept of, you know, shadow writers, for example, right? That has been around for quite some time. I mean, presidents wrote books using shadow writers. Nobody said that those were plagiaristic creations, right? So where are we with this? I apologize, Deborah, if I'm picking on you, but I just, anyone else would like to speak to this, to the issue of specifically, like, do we call this plagiarism or what? Catherine, go ahead.
Well, I was in an anthropology conference for community college instructors a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this. And many of us said basically that our classic definition of plagiarism doesn't work and cover AI. So we kind of need to expand and refine our definition of plagiarism.
That's right. That's right. Well, again, I have to agree, because again, if it's done, it's sort of like, you know, gosh, I really don't know what the analogy is, but let's just say there is, you know, a picture that I draw, and I'm okay, you know what, I can't think of a good analogy, but the bottom line is, yeah, I'd rather not. The issue here is that when I ask questions, okay, oh, there we go. If I ask a question of Google, and Google comes up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 sites that illustrate my thinking. So I put those 5 sites as reference to a piece of work that I have just created. And I'm going to say, okay, these are the sites. So this is my composition. I picked those 5 sites. They have been created by somebody else, no question about it, but it's not like, you know, I'm forgetting. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't matter who wrote them. This is my point. So here is that soup of words and ideas and this fountain of knowledge, right? And it still has to go through my brain, because I am the one who is asking it a question, nobody else. So I think you're right that this is going to be a different different definition of plagiarism, or again, you know, this is not, to me, it's not plagiarism. It's just using a different tool. If that tool is illegal, well, then yeah, then let's have that discussion. Why not? But I would not put it under the umbrella of plagiarism and ban it for that reason. Catherine, do you have anything else to add?
No, our main sort of consensus was just for if you were doing short answer questions or essay questions on tests, you just now need to go back to doing them in person.
So again, if you were to look at YouTube, there are a lot of videos these days from people from all kinds of walks of life, talking about how ChatGPT is changing their lives. And one of those is one of the professors who speaks to the issue of how many different uses there are that are really very positive from the student perspective. It could be, let's just say, you know, for me, it's a personal advisor. If I run out of things to say, or I'm just at the loss of words, or I forgot something, there is the answer. Then there is, for students, it's a private tutor galore. There is no question that ChatGPT cannot master, at least, you know, like in the current form that, you know, sure, maybe that's my narrow-minded thinking about it, but to me, for all practical purposes, it's already unlimited. So if I need a question to an answer to a question that has something to do with the mysteries of the universe, then, you know, I am not an expert on it, and going through Google is going to take half a day for me to understand the concept. There it is. It's going to explain it to me. As a matter of fact, ChatGPT is an example of artificial intelligence, which means that it is intelligent. So if I ask it to please clarify this, okay, explain the universe at the 5-year-old level, you're going to get it. If this is something that, you know, okay, please tell me why life cannot exist on Jupiter, write an essay at the college level, 700 words, right there in a second. So again, those things are very, very, very useful to students if they know what it is that they are expecting, what is the answer that they need. And even if they find something that's not expected, then I guess that's even better. But the role of the faculty is definitely bound to change. That's just my take on it. Let's see here. Sally Baldwin is on my list. Sally, do you mind sharing with us what brought you here? What is it? What's your experience with ChatGPT?
Sorry.
No problem at all.
Oops, I meant to undo my video too.
Sure.
So I went to your earlier one at 9 or 10 or whatever, the first one as well. So I'm primarily here to learn, but you've given me so much food for thought. And as I consider what I've been hearing today, I think about the ability to find information and the ability to write well. And they're different skills, but we really want to train or help our students learn how to do both. And I have a son who's an attorney who prides himself on his ability to write. And this is only a skill that has been developed by reading books about how to write better and working with people to learn this skill.
That's right.
And revising work and whatnot. And so when I'm hearing these different ideas, I never would have thought of it like a ChatGPT, like a calculator, but I could definitely see that. And someone had suggested saying how having students sign their name and explaining where they got information, how they utilized information. And many times I ask students to begin the term evaluating resources so that they understand how to do that work, so that when we utilize resources later, they have a good basis for their research. So I look at this as a similar way, right? My question is, what's GPT stand for?
I can provide because it's a very technical term, so I never really bothered to remember because it's not my cup of tea at all. Here's a link to ChatGPT, and you can ask it. Oh, there we go. Generative predictive text. Thank you. I think that's what it is. I think that, sounds very credible, Andrew. That's just excellent. So that's it. But now, Sally, what you have mentioned, intentionally or not, is the aspect of a skill. And I think as we've been talking about student learning outcomes and competency attainment, skill attainment for years. And I think that ChatGPT puts us in a position when we cannot avoid it any longer, at least from my perspective. Because again, it doesn't matter where you get the information from. You don't have to come to class anymore, but you have to learn something. And you have to learn something because you have to survive. Even to use artificial intelligence in intelligent ways, you still have to know what to ask, right? So probably that's how I see their faculty role is going to be changing. Going back to this comment about faculty as facilitators of learning, rather than the only sources of knowledge and everything is out there in the universe. So that's my thinking about it, that if we don't change the way we do our business, then I tell you, one day people will just simply stop coming to our classrooms. Because if I can manipulate artificial intelligence to the point that it can generate any kind of a speech on any topic, and again, and have me as an avatar demonstrate what I think I know to my potential employers, well, then here I am. Who is going to deny me a job? I just came through as the best candidate, right? What's the next question? Again, this will have to be in the context of what it is that we need to accomplish, rather than how we accomplish it and what we get, where we get our information from. So I tell you, when I think about this, that's when I get scared. Just kind of like, where is it going to end? And again, my thinking is, and I said it in the previous session, is one word of caution that if artificial intelligence is meant to harm, then it's not intelligent. In a sense that intelligence should be based on the fact that we don't have to kill each other to live together, right? Or we don't have to be thinking about how to get rid of somebody to make us happy. That's not where humanity should be going. And I think ultimately that's the existential question that artificial intelligence will have to address. And ChatGPT is certainly on the way to get us there. Again, all those things about banning it or not banning it, that's a completely different type of discussion that I think is going to disappear very, very, very quickly. And we will focus, just like you mentioned, Sally, on skill and competency attainment, rather than trying to, okay, we know better, we need to fend off this threat. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your comments. Let's see. So Andrew is saying, okay, thumbs up. Let's see, who else could I pick on? Anybody else who has any comments that who would like to speak to us? Let me see here. How about Gloria? Gloria Shenoy, would you please, do you mind? I mean, you just happen to be on my list here. What brought you to this session?
Yeah, so I work with the Center for Teaching and Learning at my institution, and we're having a conversation with faculty next week. And so I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about it. And I feel like it's really like two camps of people that are trying to prevent cheating, and then how do we use this new technology, and then maybe a third camp of like, how do we use it for grading purposes, right? Because ChatGPT it's like a powerful enough tool that you can actually put in a student paper and ask it to give it feedback, right? And so that like cuts down grading time. And we're trying to have some like ethical conversations around it as well, of like, how much do you disclose to students? You know, I'm part of the assessment team, and we have a university-wide project that students have to write an essay about. And for a long time, not all of them were rated because we didn't have enough people. We were doing a sampling. And I was like, what if we, use something like an AI that would give some kind of feedback to students, right? And so I've been reading a little bit about faculty assigning students to put their own essays into ChatGPT to get the initial like feedback of like, how is this paper? What are the errors? So I think there's some really exciting potentials, but I think also some questions about originality and creativity.
Right. So I think you're absolutely right. The creativity, originality, that's out the window as well, because again, this is an intelligent entity, right? Whatever we make out of it, it's still intelligent. So it is going to take away a lot of those creative tasks that we take, that we as humans take for granted need to happen when we express ourselves. Now, when you mentioned the fact that faculty could use ChatGPT to assess, to give students feedback, then, who knows, use that way. Again, obviously faculty are going to be cutting corners, right? This is a note for those people who think that students should not be writing essays using ChatGPT, but faculty can use it when assessing them. So the point is that ChatGPT is going to cut a lot of our tasks shorter and make them more efficient. So, for example, when I think of again, I mentioned already the outline or the conversation, and I think that someone said something. I had a thought about it. It's a type of language model that uses deep learning techniques to generate natural language text. There was a comment in the chat. I apologize, just lost my thought. But the bottom line is that using this, we can make a lot of tasks shorter. However, here's the issue of assessment. And assessment, as we know it, is pretty much out the window, because we can't assign the 500-word or 1,000-word essay anymore to students, right? So I think what will have to happen is that students will learn whatever they need to learn, however they learn it, and then those skills and competencies will need to be presented in a classroom, perhaps classroom, not even via Zoom, but in the classroom in front of a faculty member, or perhaps in a lecture hall where students would simply write papers just like they've been doing for decades, except this time without any access to the internet, I guess. So I think that's where the discussion should be heading. And I tell you, if that's true, then I think that as far as our educational structures are concerned, I am envisioning a campus that would be converted to really nothing but assessment centers, right? That students will go in. Here's room E209. Please report there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to sit there and write an essay on a topic X, Y, and Z, and you will have an hour to accomplish it. I just don't know how else to make it work. Anybody else? Andrew, you're okay with those thoughts, right? Andrew is always very, very supportive. So thank you so much. So let me just, let me see here. Catherine Taylor, would you please tell us what your experience is with chat and what brought you to this discussion?
I was just interested to continue the discussion on how this is going to affect teaching?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question now, right? What do we do as far as faculty? What do we do as far as teachers? How do we utilize it in the classroom, and how do we make sure that we still keep the what we may call integrity, right, or the educational academic rigor of the past? Because again, this is not anything that we have experienced before, and I tell you, the future is upon us. The artificial intelligence tools are going to get only more powerful, smarter, and more imposing with pretty much every day. And if it's true that ChatGPT is going to be 500 times more effective by spring, then I don't even know what it means. How can it be possibly more powerful? I just don't know. If that's the case, then what is it going to do? I mean, I will not have to worry about updates on my computers, I suppose, and the coffee is going to be fixed, because I thought about it. It's just truly amazing as far as the potential here, and that's leaving education on the side. So yeah, we'll see what happens. For now, all I see is that we can take for granted the fact that students are going to be using ChatGPT and other AI to learn. It's up to us to decide what it is that they need to learn. At least that's how I see it. Alrighty then. So let me see who is there. Kelly Purnell. I'm sorry, you're next on my list. Would you please share your thoughts on why you're here, and what are your questions, or maybe what's your interest?
Thank you for asking. I came here to learn many of and had a lot of the same concerns that other attendees and participants here have said. I work at Berkeley City College. It's a community college in the California community college system. And we have found ever since the pandemic has hit that our demand for online courses has skyrocketed. And I teach mathematics, and I mentioned in the chat earlier that PhotoMath is very similar to ChatGPT. It's been out for a very long time. And I've been looking for alternative assessment methods, like how can I validate someone's learning? How can I design my courses where I get authentic assessments? Because I've noticed in my online courses, I get homework submissions that are identical from one student to the next. And so is it going to be the case that we have to establish this robust system of testing centers where people can go and take in-person tests, whether or not we've got students that are local or living all over the world? Right.
I mean, there's the concept of a testing center is that's something that's popular throughout the planet, right? I mean, there's always a university somewhere that there's going to be a library building where students can sit quietly and take the test, I suppose. What type of test, or what kind of what kind of assessment activity there is to be done, that's a separate discussion, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be GRE style multiple choice test, that's of 258 questions, and you have 2 hours to finish those.
But we also have to, sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Train and provide a lot of professional development to train or teach faculty that it's better to embrace the technology that's coming that we cannot control.
That's right.
And that's a big daunting task to take, because students are grade oriented. They will use the technology to get the grade that they need to, especially at the community college level, because they're not at their destination institution, and grades do matter to get in.
That's right. So again, now the issue of grading, as you know, I mean, we've been talking about the concept of ungrading and so forth. Grades is something that we envisioned as something that matters, right? So it's not anything that it's inner to human existence. I mean, people would do just fine if grades didn't exist at all. This is something that we as a system expect to happen at some point. And again, we talked about this quite a bit, that faculty perpetuate this because
the grading system is what we've gone through, right? I mean, we all faculty, you know, with masters, with PhDs and whatnot, with years and years and years in academia. You know, if it worked for us, it's got to work for them, right? And we obviously know who them are, our students. So that's where we are with this. And gosh, again, if we only focus, move the discussion from grade attainment, because you're absolutely right, in current system, again, that's being created by by education altogether, the focus is on grades, and is you know, the better the grade, the better I am, regardless of what I've learned in the course. We need to move that discussion. We've been trying to move the discussion to competency and skill attainment. And I tell you, that's the part that keeps me afloat in this discussion, because I believe that ChatGPT is going to only help students understand what it is that they are learning in English, for example, right? If I were to, using ChatGPT as my personal tutor, I am going to write a haiku poem, or maybe something that's more extensive. Let's just say I write you know, a poem with 3 or 4 stanzas, and I put it through ChatGPT, please improve it. And I'm going to get a, whoa, look at this. Now I can write like this. I know what the difference is between the bad and good writing. And this is where our skills can go. The same thing is with any creativity part, which has to do with video, visual arts and picture generation. And then again, even when it comes to presentations themselves, right? My communication skills are much better because of ChatGPT. So this is an issue of consideration. Again, we need to create spaces and areas where we can discuss these issues, because again, we can't just push it back and pretend that it doesn't exist. So thank you very much, Kelly, for your comments. And then Andrew, I've had students who can't stop themselves knowing that I will detect their identical. Okay, so let's talk about this for just a moment. I know it's 3 o'clock, so we should be going. Students will detect the identical submissions. You know what? The ChatGPT will actually generate all kinds of different responses to same questions. So I try to experiment with it. And then if that doesn't work, there is also this magic regenerate answer button at the bottom of the chat. So you can ask the ChatGPT to answer a question, and then you can have the answer regenerate again. You can do it in any language, and you can do it at any English level proficiency, or from all kinds of different perspectives. You can have it from the third person singular, or from third person plural perspectives. There's just all kinds of different things that you can do. So students are, you know, hey, let's just not underestimate their mental capacities, right? I mean, by now students know that they probably should not just simply ask chat to generate a 500-word essay, and then all you have to do is copy and paste it. I mean, I'm sure that there are some who would do it, but when you think about it again, that's probably true as far as faculty are concerned. Again, it's a human trait rather than just our students trying to cut corners. So again, this discussion is to be continued. We really need to embrace the concept, see where this is going to take us in the next few weeks, because I tell you, I'm afraid to speak even about years in this context. So there we go. So it's 3 o'clock. I apologize. Thank you, Belinda, for sharing this. Let's see if is this something that because I read inside. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right. I haven't seen this article, so thank you very much for sharing. I'll certainly take a look. And thank you for the discussion, everyone. I really appreciate this. I hope you are going to enjoy the symposium tomorrow. We just have a short evaluation session, and gosh, pleasure to have you. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you around. Any questions? Yeah, we have coaches have the website. There is a blog there. We can have this discussion. We can continue the work. So thank you again. We'll stay in touch. Yes.